Have you ever had the feeling that you were being watched from the darkness? Do you live out in the middle of nowhere, where even if everything was normal, everything would still be creepy as hell? Well, both of those go for me, and when I looked out my window one night, I regretted ever moving to this godforsaken brick shack on top of this wooded hill. All around my house, the trees are so thick that if you were to go out during the night, you would most likely be lost until sunrise. Or even worse, you would find one of the many bogs around my home and you would get sucked to the bottom, never to be heard from again. After seeing this thing that I could never formulate a name for at the time, I realized what most likely laid underneath all of the muck and leaves. Things like this shouldn't ever be put into the real world. I'm a kid that likes fantasy and would trade most of my real life for a good game of Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh any day. But this bit of fantasy, it made me want to end it all and just get away forever. One night, laying in bed, I happened to roll over to where I was facing the window. Eyes still closed, I began to hear a scratching noise on my window. And as soon as I opened my eyes, I saw something that I could never erase from memory. A face that was as white as snow, but it held no real features except for a line where its mouth should be, a hollowed out spot where its nose should be, and two lines where its eyes should be. Those lines that it held as its eyes ripped open like lightning, revealing to me two blank white orbs. I ran from my room as soon as my feet hit the floor, and I slept in the bathtub. The next day I told my mom that I wanted curtains. She took a few days to fulfill my request, so the bathtub became my bed. It always sucked whenever the tub was still wet from an early morning shower. I soon learned to wipe up the water before laying down. But once my mom finally put my midnight black curtains up, I went back to sleep in my room. That was a mistake. I slept for one night in there, but when I heard a child's laughter, I ran like hell. Nothing could make me go back to that room for at least a week. Finally, I worked up the courage to go back to my room after about 8 or 9 days. I slept with my back facing the window. About 3 weeks after re-entering my room, since I had gotten over the creepy laughter incident, I heard a crash in the middle of the night. I made the mistake of looking over towards the window where the crash came from. The curtains had blown open thanks to an AC vent and knocked an action figure off of a shelf. How the curtains had that much strength was beyond me, but I wasn't concerned with the curtains as much as I was concerned with the thing behind the curtain. That wretched face looked at me, as if staring straight into my soul with its blank eyes. I ran from my room once again, and when I got into the bathtub and closed the shower curtain, I heard a shriek, as if a laughing child was being stabbed. I slept in the tub all the way up until my 17th birthday party. The night after my party, I started sleeping in my room again, and promptly close-pinned my curtains shut. Nothing was getting to me that night, or so I thought. Around 2 a.m., I awoke with a fright. My stereo started to blare at its maximum volume, and the thing that played on the stereo scared the hell out of me. At the end of a My Chemical Romance song off of their album 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge, there is the sound of a girl's laughter. That was all that played, over and over and over. I took the CD out of the stereo, broke it clean in half, and began to look for my lighter so that I could burn the pieces. That's when I noticed it. The curtains, clothespins everywhere, and the AC had just kicked on. I did a sort of crab walk to get back into my bed, and at that time the curtains blew open so hard that the curtain rod fell. On the other side of the window, he sat there, looking into my eyes. I had finally had enough. I ran up to the window and hit it with all that I had in me. It splintered to the bottom portion of the split window, and when that happened, the creature raised its head to the top half of the window. Its mouth opened. The teeth, they were like razor blades, except they were so jagged as if they had been run across asphalt. Its eyes rolled forward, and the piercing red irises of those eyes were going to rape my memory for the rest of eternity. I yelled out as loud as possible, "Get out of my life!" What happened then? I never expected it. The thing, It spoke to me in the soft voice of a small feminine child. It said, "All that I wanted to do was play with you, sweetie, but I guess the deer will have to do." As it said that, it reached a bone-white skeletal hand through the splintered window, making a small hole through the spiderweb center of the glass. It caressed my face and closed its mouth, giving me a faint smile. "Goodbye, brother. I'll always be waiting," was the last thing it said before it dropped out of sight and the terror left the room. My mom came in about 10 minutes later to find me crying on the floor, saying the same thing over and over. Brother. To this day, I have no idea why that thing didn't take my life. Perhaps it loved me in some strange, sadistic way. Perhaps it never meant to do harm to me, or even scare me. Maybe if I hadn't been so afraid, I could have talked to the only thing in my life to ever call me brother. I still don't understand two other things. One, how could it be looking into my window if I lived on the second floor of my house? And number two, the girlfriend I have now has a little brother that is very feminine. He has the same voice as that thing. How could that be possible, seeing as I never knew him until a year after this happened? All of this still haunts me. I want an explanation, but there is only one way to truly understand it all. Come back and see me again, Brother Razormouth.